What's going on, family? I appreciate y'all tuning in. Today is the 16th of February. We're going to be talking about Enoch's Uber. We're going to connect it with these objects flying over the continental U.S. recently because it's all tied in together. It's very interesting what's going on. And a lot of people, especially spiritual or religious people, don't understand this isn't a new occurrence. These things have happened before. One thing I find interesting with all of this is the three objects and the significance of the number three. I find it very interesting. But let's get into it. So let's get right to it. The book of Jasher. What is the book of Jasher? The book of Jasher has always been in your scriptures, but they took it out with the Apocrypha. Right here, we have a couple verses that references the book of Jasher that you can look at in your Bible. Joshua 10:13, 2 Samuel 1:18, and 2 Timothy 3:8. So let's check out a few of these verses to see what they say. All right, so right here we have Joshua 10:13. So let's read it. And the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? You see that? Now, we talked about this earlier on the live, but I want to put out two revelations in front of your face. One, we're reading out of the book of Joshua, right? But it's referencing Jasher, which shows you that Jasher predates Joshua. And it also shows you that it's supposed to be in your scriptures, but they took it out for a reason. All right, so now let's check out 2 Samuel. All right, here it is. 2 Samuel 1:18. Also he bade them, teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Jasher. So there goes another book from the Old Testament that we have referencing the book of Jasher. And we know where there's two or more witnesses, what lies there. But let's go into these texts and read if this has happened before. Objects appearing in the sky and then descending to the earth. Because I believe what's happening to the world right now, what's happening in the world, specifically America, with objects popping up all over the place, I'm starting to believe that's directly from the Most High. But before we tap all the way into that, let me show what the Commander-in-Chief said today. And we're also going to look at a few senators. And you make your own assumptions. You just make your own assumptions.
NORAD closely scrutinized our airspace, including enhancing our radar to pick up more slow-moving objects above our country around the world. In doing so, they tracked three unidentified objects, one in Alaska, Canada, and over Lake Huron in the Midwest. They acted in accordance with established parameters for determining how to deal with unidentified aerial objects in U.S. airspace.
I want you to remember slow-moving objects because that's important. Also, Alaska, Canada, and Michigan. So it's showing you that the objects are getting closer inland, right?
At their recommendation, I gave the order to take down these three objects due to hazards to civilian commercial air traffic and because we could not rule out the surveillance risk of sensitive facilities. We acted in consultation with the Canadian government. I spoke personally with Prime Minister Trudeau and from Canada on Saturday. And just as critically, we acted out of an abundance of caution and an opportunity that allowed us to take down these objects safely.
Notice he doesn't say balloon. He keeps saying objects.
Our military and the Canadian military are seeking to recover the debris so we can learn more about these three objects. Our intelligence community is still assessing all three incidences. They're reporting to me daily and will continue their urgent efforts to do so, and I will communicate that to the Congress.
Yeah, I'm sorry, y'all. I can't keep listening to that BS. But one thing he does state, if you watch this, in its entirety is that he doesn't feel a sovereign nation had anything to do with it. Matter of fact, he tries to point to a personal or a individual researcher or some type of private company that may have done this. The only problem with that is if you don't know what they are because you can't find them now, why are you shooting them down? What changed from these three objects and the first balloon that you let traverse the whole continental U.S.? What's the difference? On top of that, their elevation levels just kept getting lower and lower. The balloon was at 60,000 feet, if I'm not mistaken. These three objects were like 40, 35, and then 20,000 feet, just getting lower and lower. So I find that very interesting, especially since everybody's gung-ho right now.
Do you believe that our intelligence agencies were jamming transmissions from that balloon as it traversed the United States the entire way?
I believe they say they were. I don't know how, and I don't know how they judge success in that allegation. I do know this, though. As they say, the cow is now out of the barn. Mm-hmm. I think the president, this administration has a tendency to ignore problems and ignore issues.
Well, you're absolutely right, John Kennedy. This nation does ignore issues, and the cow is out of the barn. Let's get into Jasher now. Jasher chapter 3. The story of Enoch. And Enoch lived 65 years, and he begat Methuselah. And Enoch walked with God after having begat Methuselah, and he served the Lord, and despised the evil ways of men. And the soul of Enoch was wrapped up in the instruction of the Lord, in knowledge and in understanding. And he wisely retired from the sons of men, and secreted himself from them for many days. And it was at the expiration of many years, whilst he was serving the Lord and praying before him in his house, that an angel of the Lord called to him from heaven. And he said, Here am I. And he said,
Rise,
go forth
from thy house,
and from the
place where thou
dost hide
thyself,
and appear to the sons
of men,
in order
that thou mayest
teach them the
way
in which they should go,
and
the work
which they must
accomplish to
enter
in the ways of
God.
We see Enoch found his solace in the separation of men. Well, being separated from men and, the current society. Consecrating himself just for the Father. So, that's probably why, he was called. Let's continue, though. I want to skip down a little bit just so I can get to my point. When we go down to verse 11, we begin to see something. And they assembled in all 130 kings and princes, and they made Enoch king over them, and they were all under his power and command. So at this particular time, all the kings of the earth were under the power of Enoch. That's amazing within itself. Now let's go down to verse 11. And Enoch taught them wisdom, knowledge, and the ways of the Lord. And he made peace amongst them. And peace was throughout the earth during the life of Enoch. He didn't have an administration or a whole cabinet. He was ruling the earth by himself with the Father. I suggest you read Jasher 3 yourself. I'm going to be doing a lot of skipping around. But we're going to hit some key parts to put this piece of the puzzle together. So Enoch ended up ruling the planet for 243 years. And the same year that Adam died is when he gave up his rulership. Enoch and his son Methuselah and Adam's two sons buried Adam in a cave. And it happened to be the same year he quit ruling over men. We're going to start off in verse 23 when the angels came down and spoke to Enoch. Let's see what they said. And then sometime after, when the kings and princes and the sons of men were speaking to Enoch, and Enoch was teaching them the ways of God, behold, an angel of the Lord then called unto Enoch from heaven, and wished to bring him up to heaven, and make him reign there over the sons of God, as he has reigned over the sons of men upon earth. Bet you never heard that before. That's an eye-opener, right? Oh, it gets deeper. Don't go nowhere. 24. When at that time Enoch heard this, he went and assembled all the inhabitants of the earth, and taught them wisdom and knowledge, and gave them divine instructions. And he said to them, I have been required to ascend into heaven. I therefore do not know the day of my going. And now, therefore, I will teach you wisdom and knowledge, and will give you instruction before I leave you, how to act upon earth, whereby you may live. And he did so. So even after his reign of men, he still taught them right before his ascent. Let's see what else happened though during that time. And he taught them wisdom and knowledge, and gave them instruction, and he reproved them, and he placed before them statutes and judgments to do upon earth. Oh yes, the statutes and judgments came through Enoch from the Father first. And he made peace amongst them, and he taught them everlasting life, and dwelt with them some time, teaching them all these things. So far we have Enoch ruling over all of mankind. The angels asking Enoch to rule over them. Enoch giving all men statutes and judgments, and teaching them eternal life. That halfway sounds like Christ, doesn't it? The power that this one person had. Let's continue though, because it gets deeper. And at that time the sons of men were with Enoch, and Enoch was speaking to them. And they lifted up their eyes, and the likeness of a great horse descended from heaven, and the horse paced in the air. And they told Enoch what they had seen, and Enoch said to them, my Uber here, y'all. Enoch said to them, on my account does this horse descend upon earth. The time is come when I must go from you, and I shall no more be seen by you. And the horse descended at that time and stood before Enoch. And all the sons of men that were with Enoch saw him. And Enoch then again ordered a voice to be proclaimed, saying, where is the man who delighted to know the ways of the Lord his God? Let him come this day to Enoch, before he is taken away from us. So we have to keep in mind of what the writer is saying. The writer is describing this object or being coming from heaven, pacing, and has the likeness of a horse. Does that mean it's an actual horse? I don't think so. It also states the horse, quote unquote, paced in the air. So we know pacing is an action that takes movement, but this one was moving, yet it was in the air. It was in the air, stationary, like floating. Take that for what you want. I'll prove my point here in a minute. But this is just to show there was other traveling devices that came from heaven before. We all know we use horses for travel. We know when the ancient writers compiled this dialogue, this book, words that were in comparison to their knowledge. So let's just keep it into context and be real with ourselves. 31. And all the sons of men assembled and came to Enoch that day. And all the kings of the earth with their princes and counselors remained with him that day. And Enoch then taught the sons of men wisdom and knowledge, and gave them divine instruction. And he bade them serve the Lord and walk in his ways all the days of their lives. And he continued to make peace amongst them. So as he was ruling, he had peace on earth. All of it, all of earth, just one man. I find that very, very, very interesting. And it was after this that he rose up and rode upon the horse. And he went forth, and all the sons of men went after him, about 800,000 men. And they went with him one day's journey. And the second day he said to them, return home to your tents. Why will you go? Perhaps you may die. And some of them went from him, and those that remained went with him 6 days' journey. And Enoch said to them every day, return to your tents, lest you may die. But they were not willing to return, and they went with him. So we have a lot to unpack. So this object was floating in the air, waiting for Enoch. As he got closer, the object descended to the earth and stood before him. Afterwards, he still taught humankind for a full day. Once he got on the object or the horse or what have you. He rode it for 6 days, and 800,000 men followed him. So this shows us that transformation wasn't instantaneous, as we have been taught for a very long time. This is a similar transformation like Elijah. They both went up in the chariots of fire. Am I correct? But we see throughout this journey, not only was he being guided by this celestial being, people followed him as well. And he spoke with them, talked with them, taught them all type of stuff for 6 days. Interesting. Let's keep going. And on the 6th day, some of the men remained and clung to him. And they said to him, we will go with thee to the place where thou goest, as the Lord liveth. Death only shall separate us. And they urged so much to go with him, that he ceased speaking to them. And they went after him and would not return. And when the kings returned, they caused a census to be taken, in order to know the number of remaining men that went with Enoch. And it was upon the 7th day that Enoch ascended into heaven in a whirlwind, with horses and chariots of fire. So from this we see it took a full week before Enoch even ascended into the heavens. This celestial object, being whatever you want to call it, horse, was on the earth for an entire week, guiding him as he rode it or rode in it for an entire week before he was even ascended. So we know that objects, celestial objects, is nothing new. It's been happening since the time of Enoch. And it's not always instantaneous either. They can linger. That's just something to think about. 37. And on the 8th day, all the kings that had been with Enoch sent to bring back the number of men that were with Enoch in their place from which he ascended into heaven. And all those kings went to the place, and they found the earth there filled with snow. And upon the snow were large stones of snow. And one said to the other, come, let us break through the snow and see. Perhaps the men that remain with Enoch are dead, and are now under the stones of snow. And they searched, but could not find him, for he had ascended into heaven. The land turned to snow, with stones of snow on top of it, or snow boulders, or glaciers. There's only one place on the planet Earth that resembles something like that. Well, maybe two, but we know one is heavily guarded. Am I right? And it's probably for a reason. It seems like a pristine place to look for an anomaly outside of this planet. Antarctica, right? Ironically, there's a lot of celestial things that happen there as well. And some say even these 3 objects that came to the U.S. may have originated in their place. These UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call them. There's plenty of evidence pointing to Antarctica as being a mecca or a breeding ground for celestial activity. I know. Y'all think I'm going off the deep end. I just want to ask you this question. These 3 objects that popped up in the U.S., nobody knows where they are. They shot 9X sidewinders at them, but there's no video. As a matter of fact, one of the sidewinders missed. How do you miss an object that's not even moving with a $500,000 missile? It makes no sense. It doesn't add up, people. Whatever is happening to these different nations, these leaders are shook and they're spooked. That's what I see. I see fear. I don't know what you see. I see fear. Not only are the general public waking up by the masses, you also have to deal with the creator above. We know that everything that's happening right now is in the hands of the Father. He orchestrates everything that we see, everything that we touch. So That's what's really happening. That's the truth. Yeah, that's it. Do any of you have siblings? Have you and your siblings ever been home alone by yourselves and broke something in the house or got in trouble at school and the teacher sends you home early and then you have to basically wait for your parents to get off of work and to come meet you as you tell them what happened? Like they don't already know. You're basically just sitting there anticipating an ass whooping. Let's be real. So, as you sit at home trying to clean everything up before their parents make it back so they don't have a reason to say anything, even though they are, you hear the brakes in the driveway screeching. Your heart get to pumping. That's what these nations feel right now. You can't destroy society, the world, animals, and desecrate the name of the Father and expect no punishment. All hidden things will be answered for. All wickedness will be reconciled. It just is what it is. And we are in the end game. We are seeing it. You are literally witnessing the fall and the destruction of Rome, Egypt, and Babylon simultaneously. Shalom.